Located on the outskirts of Egypt's Greater Cairo region is a city with a very peculiar name, the 6th of October. But why? Why does Egypt have an entire city dedicated to the 6th of October? The city was established in 1979 by Egypt's third president, President Anwar el-Sadat, and the city's name commemorates the commencement of the Yom Kippur War on the 6th of October 1973. The Yom Kippur War was an armed confrontation spanning October 6th to 25th, 1973, involving Israel and a coalition of Arab nations led by Egypt and Syria. The primary theatres of conflict were the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights, both of which had been seized by Israel following the Six-Day War in 1967. In initiating the war, Egypt aimed to establish a foothold on the eastern bank of the Suez Canal. This strategic position was intended to facilitate negotiations for the restoration of the remainder of the Sinai Peninsula, which was under Israeli occupation. On October 6, 1973, the Arab coalition launched a surprise attack against Israel, marking the commencement of the war. Notably, this attack occurred on the holy Jewish day of Yom Kippur, coinciding with the 10th day of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan in that particular year. Interestingly, this is where the other oddly named Egyptian city, the 10th of Ramadan, gets its name. Hostilities unfolded as Egyptian and Syrian forces crossed their respective ceasefire boundaries with Israel, penetrating the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights. Egyptian troops achieved a successful crossing of the Suez Canal in Operation Badr, advancing into the Sinai Peninsula. Concurrently, Syrian forces executed a coordinated assault in the Golan Heights, synchronized with the Egyptian offensive. The attack of Operation Badr caught the Israelis off guard, leading to the success of the Suez Canal crossing by October 7th. 5 Egyptian infantry divisions occupied the eastern bank of the canal and established defensive positions spanning the 160-kilometer front. After a temporary pause of hostilities on October 7th, Israeli armoured reserves reached the front lines and initiated a counter-offensive opposite the city of Ismailia. Despite this effort, the Egyptian forces effectively employed anti-tank weaponry to repel the Israeli force, subsequently renewing their advance. As of the conclusion of October 8th, Egypt had secured a stretch of territory along the entirety of the eastern bank of the Suez Canal, with a depth of around 15 kilometers. However, after 3 days of intense combat, Israel managed to halt the Egyptian offensive, leading to a military standoff. Alongside this, Israel pushed Syrian forces back to the ceasefire lines that existed before the outbreak of the war. The Israeli military then initiated a counter-offensive attack lasting 4 days, and in a matter of a week, Israeli artillery commenced shelling the outskirts of Damascus, the Syrian capital. Meanwhile, Egyptian forces aimed to secure control over 2 strategically important mountain passes situated further within the Sinai Peninsula. Yet, their efforts were thwarted, prompting Israeli forces to launch a counterattack by crossing the Suez Canal and advancing into Egypt, making their way towards Suez City. On October 22nd, an initial ceasefire brokered by the United Nations faltered, as each side accused the other of violating the terms of the ceasefire. To put a long story short, Israel substantially improved their positions, advancing to a point approximately 100 kilometers away from Cairo, the Egyptian capital. Ultimately, a second ceasefire was jointly implemented on October 25, 1973, signifying the official conclusion of the war. In retrospect, the Yom Kippur War repeated the history of the Arab world's humiliation following the defeat of the Egyptian-Syrian-Jordanian alliance in 1967. Despite this, the early achievements in the 1973 conflict proved a sense of psychological vindication for the Arab nations involved. In the aftermath, the Israelis acknowledged that, although they had achieved remarkable victories, there was no assurance of continuous military dominance over the Arab states, a dominance they had maintained consistently across the First, Second and Third Arab-Israeli wars. Following the war, the 1978 Camp David Accords resulted in Israel ceding control of the entire Sinai Peninsula to Egypt. This transfer of territory also granted Egypt full control over the Suez Canal, meaning that in the end, Egypt was sort of victorious and had full control over the entire Sinai Peninsula. Ironically, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, who opened the city of the 6th of October, would die on the 6th of October. On the very date of the uploading of this video in 1981, Anwar Sadat was assassinated by members of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad during the annual victory parade held in Cairo to celebrate Operation Badr. This has been me, Jack, and if you live in the city of the 6th of October, please leave a comment down below.